Okay, the time is now 12:01 p.m. Good afternoon. And I will call the meeting of the District of Columbia Board of Ethics and Government Accountability to order. I'm Norma Hutcheson, the BEGA Chairperson, and due to COVID-19, this meeting is being held virtually via WebEx. Joining me today for this meeting are board members Charles Nottingham, Darrin Sobin, and Felice Smith. Together, the 4 board members constitute a quorum for this meeting. Since it was first posted, the agenda for the meeting has not been changed in any way. So I ask that you take a look at it, and then we'll have a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
I'll offer the motion that we adopt the agenda for today's meeting.
I'll second it.
Right, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for today's meeting. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, I don't hear any opposition. Hearing none, the agenda is adopted for today's meeting. And also before us today are the October 6th, 2022 draft meeting minutes. And will a member please make a motion that we consider approval of the meeting minutes from October?
I'll go ahead. Go ahead, Felice.
I'll offer that motion.
I will second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the board consider approval of the October 6th, 2022 meeting minutes. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Is that an aye, Darrin?
Yes, aye. Sorry, slow reader.
That's all right. Hearing no opposition, the board approves the October 6th, 2022 meeting minutes. So we'll move to the next item on the agenda, and that's a report from the Office of Open Government. Director Niquelle Allen will provide the report on behalf of the office, and she is also appearing virtually via WebEx. Director Allen, please proceed.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I am Niquelle Allen, the Director of Open Government. I am pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Open Government, or OOG. Since the last board meeting, OOG has continued to fulfill its mission of ensuring that all persons receive full and complete information regarding the affairs of the District of Columbia government and the actions of those who represent them. The first item is the Open Meetings Act and Freedom of Information Act advice rendered by the office. Advisory opinions. On October 12, 2022, I issued number OOG-2022-008-M, resolution of a complaint, ANC, dismissing an Open Meetings Act complaint filed against an advisory neighborhood commission. As the board knows, DC Official Code Section 574-3F excludes advisory neighborhood commissions from the definition of public bodies and the Open Meetings Act statutory requirements. The complainant was informed that the Advisory Neighborhood Councils Act of 1975 governs ANC meetings and to advise the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions on the issue. The second item is Informal Open Meetings Act and FOIA advice. Since the last board meeting, OOG has responded informally via email or telephone to requests for assistance as follows. OOG responded to 24 requests for Open Meetings Act advice. We responded to 17 requests for Freedom of Information Act advice and 37 requests for technical assistance with open-dc.gov. The next item is remote meeting monitoring. OOG attorneys attend remote public meetings to ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act. During this process, they also inspect public body websites and the OOG central meeting calendar for public meeting notices and records. We provide legal advice on the Open Meetings Act compliance and take corrective action if necessary. During October 2022, OOG attended 16 remote public body meetings. As a result of the monitoring, a notice of infraction was issued to the chair of a public body for habitual noncompliance. 11 separate instances of written corrective measures were taken regarding 1, public meeting notices that lacked planned agendas, instructions for the public to attend remote meetings, and the absence of meeting records that should have been on the public body's website or central meeting calendar. The Open Meetings Act requires the timely posting of these items, and the relevant code section is DC Official Code Sections 2-576, 2-577, and 2-578. The second item is the agendas that the notice required by 3 DCMR 10409.2 requires, and you should have this on your agenda. This meeting is governed by the Open Meetings Act. Please address any questions or complaints arising under this meeting to the Office of Open Government at opengovoffice@dc.gov. The next item are training and outreach activities. The first is the Practicing Law Institute pretrial practice course. On October 4th, 2022, trial attorney Weil completed the pretrial practice 2022 training, and it included the review of procedures and strategies on pleadings, motion to dismiss, discovery, Daubert motions, summary judgments, and settlements. The next item is BEGA 2022 Ethics Week, Ethics in Practice. During Ethics Week, which was held virtually October 11th through 14th, 2022, the Office of Open Government staff attended all programs and sessions of the BEGA Ethics in Practice program. Each session covered best practices for compliance with ethics law and other insightful information. OOG also presented seminars on open government and FOIA. IT specialist Kevon Bridges provided technical support and assistance throughout the training program. I, along with OOG's legal staff, attended the government ethics webinars to meet our annual ethics training obligations. The next item is Ethics Week 2022, OOG's FOIA training. On October 13th, 2022, I provided Ethics Week attendees with an overview of the Office of Open Government, the services we provide, and the importance of government transparency. I presented FOIA litigation, FOIA appeals, affidavit, and cases, a webinar for district FOIA officers. The purpose of this webinar was to prepare DC FOIA officers for the FOIA appeals process when an appeal is a civil action in DC Superior Court. Topics included the district's FOIA appeal process, how to prepare for potential FOIA litigation, how to prepare a Vaughan Index, and an overview of current FOIA cases. Attorney DeBerry assisted me with this presentation. The presentation was attended. I think someone needs to be muted. And attendees were able to ask questions during the presentation via the chat feature. OOG's legal staff were also in attendance and fielded questions in the chat. The next course that we provided was Best Practices in OMA Compliance during Ethics Week, and that was also on October 13th. Chief Counsel Barton presented Best Practices for OMA Compliance. This course was tailored to address the issues that administrative contacts for boards and commissions face when ensuring public body meetings are held in adherence to the Open Meetings Act. The training included practical advice for ensuring OMA compliance based on OOG's experience with public bodies that face compliance issues. The training was well received by the attendees. I, along with the OOG staff, were in attendance and assisted with fielding questions. The last training we provided during Ethics Weeks was parliamentary procedure training. Susan Leahy, who is the creator of Robert's Rule Made Simple, presented a webinar on the rules of parliamentary procedure. The course provided information on the basics of using Robert's Rules of Order to hold orderly, efficient meetings. The course provided instruction on using motions and general group dynamics. Trial attorney Weil, OOG's parliamentary law expert, assisted with the webinar. I, along with OOG staff, attended the webinar and also assisted with questions. The next item, the 21st Annual Compliance and Ethics Institute. I attended the Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics 21st Annual Compliance and Ethics Institute from Monday, October 7th to Wednesday, October 19th. The Compliance Institute provided at least 7 hour-long courses per day. Courses on my itinerary included webinars that covered privacy issues, leadership, investigations, education programs, and budget. Key courses I attended that are directly related to open government included We Are Still Talking About Social Media Risk, What's Old is New Again, Can the U.S. Operate with 50+ Cents of Privacy Rules, and Best Practices for Developing Enterprise-Wide Approach to Data Security and Privacy Compliance. The next item is National Institute of Trial Advocacy, or NEDA, deposition training. On October 19th through 21st, Chief Counsel Barton attended NEDA's 3-day online deposition training. The attendees actively participated in each stage of the deposition process and received individual critiques from skilled faculty presenters. Office of Administrative Hearings FOIA training is next. On October 19th, Attorney Weil presented FOIA training to the Office of Administrative Hearings, Office of General Counsel, and staff members. The training covered the basics of DC FOIA and the obligations of government employees when the agency receives a FOIA request. He also provided instruction on the use of FOIA exemptions. FOIA officer training, nuts and bolts of FOIA. On October 28th, Chief Counsel Barton presented a FOIA training for district agency FOIA officers. The training, nuts and bolts of FOIA, consisted of interactive questions and instructions. Participants engaged with the facilitator through the process, through questions and answers, and illustrated exercises that illustrated common FOIA issues. I, along with Attorney Weil and Paralegal Specialist Brown, were in attendance. 28 FOIA officers attended the training. This was the last course in OOG's FOIA training program, and we're looking to formalize this training program and offer it to new and veteran FOIA officers several times a year. The last item is training is Mayor Bowser's cabinet meeting and ethics training. This is a new addition that's not reflected in your meeting notes. On yesterday, November 2nd, 2022, I attended the mayor's cabinet meeting where she provided ethics training for over 300 DC government leaders. OGE Director Ashley Cooks facilitated the training and responded to participants' ethics questions. Mayor Bowser stressed her commitment to an ethical government that adheres to ethics rules, which she sponsored as a member of the DC Council. The next item, legislative and litigation update. I'll start with litigation. Schilling versus the Speaker of the House of U.S. Representatives, Nancy Pelosi et al. The U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia's October 3rd, 2022 opinion disposed a suit by radio host Robert Schilling against the U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Pelosi, the Oversight Reform Committee, the clerk, and the Chief Administrative Officer. Acknowledging that the federal Freedom of Information law does not apply to Congress, Mr. Schilling still sued for the House officials' non-disclosure of records, if any existed, asserting a common law right to public access. Judge McFadden dismissed the complaint, holding that any common law right of access to government records, which in any case is only recognized in dicta, would be superseded by the speech or debate language of the U.S. Constitution. Judge McFadden's opinion is in Dropbox. Terrace, Plavick, and Millen lawsuit regarding preliminary budget request. As I previously reported, Terrace, Plavick, and Millen, or TPM, sued the District of Columbia under DC FOIA, alleging that the District of Columbia failed to produce and post various online Office of State Superintendent of Education and District of Columbia Public Schools budget-related documents. The DC Court of Appeals held oral argument on September 28, 2022, and disposition is pending. Both parties filed supplemental letters citing Rule 428K about an Office of Legal Counsel USDOJ opinion that was mentioned in the oral argument about separation of powers. Those supplemental letters are in the Dropbox, but the cited opinion does not directly address FOIA law. Washington Post lawsuit regarding records arising out of the Capitol insurrection. As I previously reported, the Washington Post, or Post, has sued the District of Columbia seeking certain records related to the Capitol insurrection. The Superior Court dismissed in part the Post claim concerning Mayor Bowser's email messages, but other claims remain contested, including issues over Mayor Bowser's WhatsApp messages. By the consent of the parties, the dispositive motion deadline was extended to November 7th, 2022, and the parties are set for mediation on December 29th, 2022. Judge Scott's scheduling order is in the Dropbox. Campaign Legal Center versus Department of Justice regarding records surrounding citizenship questions in the 2020 census. I have reported on the appellate decision in this case, which arose out of a 2017 correspondence between the U.S. Department of Justice and the Census Bureau to enable the Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross to add an item to their 2020 census questionnaire to ask respondents about their citizenship status. The U.S. Court of Appeals concluded that despite the Gary letter being sent after the Attorney General's first mention of the citizenship question, the language of the Gary letter itself was crafted to protect DOJ's litigation and policy interest, so the Gary letter was itself a final document representing a substantive policy judgment so that its drafts qualified for withholding under Federal Exemption 5. However, the court remanded for further consideration of the withholding of 5 emails that may have been sent after the Gary letter was transmitted. Since the appellate opinion, the requester plaintiff Campaign Legal Center, or CLC, filed this renewed motion for summary judgment on remand. CLC argues the remaining documents are not subject to the deliberative process privilege because they post-date the agency decisions at issue and therefore are neither pre-decisional nor deliberative. The documents at issues were drafted after a final agency decision had been reached and simply reflect a predetermined rationale and borrowed work product. Even if the district court were to find the material to be pre-decisional and deliberative, the documents should still be released because DOJ has not specifically articulated how the withheld information could result in any foreseeable harm. DOJ's response was due on October 30th. CLC's reply is due on November 30th. The available documents, including an update on the docket sheet and scheduling order, are in the Dropbox. Chicago Justice Police Project lawsuit regarding the Metropolitan Police Department gang database records. On March 15, 2022, the Chicago Justice Project, or CJP, sued the District of Columbia to compel the release of records from an MPD database associating individuals with specific gangs or crews, including information about individuals, e.g. race, age, gender, criteria for inclusion in the database, and associated criminal activities, and the identities and titles of those authorized to, quote, input, alter, update, or make changes to data. On November 23rd, 2022, MPD denied the request because, one, fulfilling the request would take more than 8 hours of personnel time to reprogram or reformat records. And 2, DC FOIA does not require agencies to do research, analyze data, answer written questions, or create records. However, MPD followed up on November 30th with limited responses. After considering the parties' cross motions for summary judgment, Judge Dason on September 21st granted in part and denied in part each side's motion. Specifically, the court found that the district has failed to comply with FOIA for request C2, records sufficient to show each entity that has access to data detailed in request A1, but the district was not required to create new documents in response to request C6. Please provide records sufficient to show the number of searches that each entity detailed in request C2 has conducted in each database. The court is reserving judgment as to whether the District of Columbia must produce a Vaughan index as to redactions related to individuals' appearance and activity. There remain unresolved issues concerning redactions on request, though the court's disposition is expected to be filed this week. I will include an update on the redaction issue in my December report to the board. The complaint is attached exhibits, the court summary judgment order, and the parties' joint status report are in Dropbox. OOG staff will continue to monitor court activity. The next section is litigation. The first item is post-public health emergency protections, extension, and emergency and temporary amendment acts of 2022. On October 17, 2022, the mayor approved DC Act 24-0564, the Post-Public Health Emergency Protections Extension Emergency Amendment Act of 2022. As I have previously reported, Section 5 extends the pandemic enacted remote meetings option for meetings of public bodies to be deemed open if the public takes steps reasonably calculated to allow the public to view or hear the meeting while the meeting is taking place, or if doing so is not technologically feasible, as soon thereafter as reasonably practicable. Also, public bodies' requirements to post physical meeting notice continues to be suspended. On October 31st, the mayor signed the companion temporary measure, Bill 24-0976, and it was enacted as Act 24-0615. The measure must now undergo a 30-day congressional review. Board of Ethics and Government Accountability Delinquent Debt Recovery Amendment Act of 2022, Bill 24-0706 is next. On October 31st, the mayor signed the bill and it was enacted as Act 24-0620. The measure must now undergo a 30-day congressional review. Advisory Neighborhood Commission's Pandemic Provisions Extension Second Emergency and Temporary Amendment Acts of 2022, Bill 24-079, and Temporary Act is Bill 24-1082. On November 1st, the Council of the District of Columbia passed emergency legislation, to extend the provision of DC Law 24-108, the Advisory Neighborhood Commission's Pandemic Provisions Extension Temporary Amendment Act of 2022, which expires on November 19th. The Emergency Act amends the Advisory Neighborhood Commission Act of 1975 to remain in effect pandemic-related provisions. These include election procedures to fill vacancies on ANCs and for advisory neighborhood commissions to conduct remote meetings. The companion temporary measure, Bill 24-1082, passed on the first reading. Executive Director of the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions, Kent Boas Appointment Resolution of 2022. On November 1st, the Council adopted Resolution R-24-0663, which names Kent Boas as the permanent Executive Director of the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions. Mr. Boas will replace the Interim Executive Director, Shanette Grant. Executive Director Boas is currently an ANC Commissioner in Ward 1, ANC 1A. Other legislative activity is next. Uniform Law Commission's update, redaction of personal information from public records. The Uniform Law Commission has designated a study committee to evaluate the need for and feasibility of a uniform or model law concerning the redaction of personal information, particularly with respect to judges and other public officials, from public records in order to address safety concerns. This project is in its earliest stage of a multi-year path to adoption, but OOG will monitor any meetings or work product of the study committee. The last item in my report are administrative matters. The first of this section is FY22 performance evaluations and agency reorganization. OOG has completed the FY22 performance evaluation of its staff members. As a result of his outstanding performance in FY 2022, BEGA provided a performance award to trial attorney Niquelle. Congratulations to him. Also, with completion of the 2022 performance evaluation period, IT specialist Kevon Bridges has aligned with BEGA's new administrative division, which is led by BEGA's Chief of Staff, Christina Mitchell. OOG Attorney Advisor vacancy. OOG will be listing its vacant attorney advisor position with the Department of Human Resources, or DCHR, next week. DCHR will be accepting applications for the position for 30 days. We look to have this position filled by the end of the calendar year. BEGA website redesign. I attended meetings with OCTO along with other BEGA agency leaders and IT specialists on October 6th, 7th, and 25th. We have viewed a mock-up of the website and are refining the final product, which will reimagine bega.dc.gov as a modernized, user-friendly electronic space and information tool. Parliamentary Procedure Portal. On November 1st, I met with vendor Susan Leahy regarding the Parliamentary Procedure Portal. The vendor is updating it to provide greater functionality and more accurate analytics. We are also working with the vendor to offer a certificate of completion for the users that go through the contents of the platform. The portal, which has been functional since September 2021, has about 300 registered users. FY24 budget formulation. BEGA is currently working on its FY24 budget. I, along with other BEGA leaders and the administrative officers, met with the Office of the Chief Financial Officer to plan the future budget and request enhancements. based on financial projections and program needs. I, along with Director Cooks and Chief of Staff Mitchell, meet with the executive, the Office of the City Administrator, regarding our budget proposal on November 17th, 2022. This concludes the Office of Open Government's November 3rd, 2022 report. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a quick question for Director Allen. Director Allen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, great. Thanks for your very voluminous report. That was excellent. Early in the report, you mentioned one, it sounded like fairly egregious or repeated violation of the Open Meetings Act involving a public body. Is there any, can you elaborate a little bit on that? What what do we do? What do we do when we have a situation like that? What kind of response do we issue? And can you give any little bit of background on kind of what type of violations we're talking about there?
Well, they're not, I would say it's not uncommon to have violations. It is uncommon for a public body to have multiple violations. So this public body, from my recollection, got this notice of infraction because of the reasons we stated below, that the agendas, instructions, and things of that nature, just basic things, this public body hasn't been providing, and without explanation. Our ultimate remedy in this type of case, in this type of matter, is to go to Superior Court and seek redress in the form of fines. So with this public body, we issued, again, this notice of infraction to kind of let them know that they were at the last step before we would seek a remedy in court for their repeated failure to follow the Open Meetings Act. We haven't found evidence so far that it's willful. If it's willful violation, then the public body member who is engaged in willful action can be fined. But we're hoping that we're able to remedy this situation without going to court. And this notice was, again, sent out just to say, hey, this is serious. You will face, just to give them notice that they could face a greater penalty.
Thank you. And just without violating any kind of confidentiality, are you able to share which body this is? Is it a body that we may have heard of, or is it a familiar one? Or
without saying the specifics, it is a smaller public
Okay.
body, so it's not one of the ones that you necessarily would have heard of. With that said, that's why I think was why we haven't jumped to say it's willful. It may just be more negligent and not knowing the rules. There is a lot of turnover that's happening now on the executive side and having to reappoint members. So not making excuses for them, but again, we're going to give them every opportunity to remedy the situation. But if it continues, we may have to take additional corrective measures. But doing so, we have viewed as an extreme option. Again, and I would seek a definite, I would seek to resolve this by other means than having to take them to court. But again, if we find that it's willful through our investigation, then as the type of activity that the council contemplated should be resolved in Superior Court.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
And just as a follow-on to that, just an observation here. I know when we started this years ago, there was a question about how many staff you actually would need to go into court and pry open a meeting that was closed when it should have been open. And just by the mechanics of how something that would work, it was probably going to be a very, very rare event. And in fact, I think the years have borne out that hasn't been the case. I mean, if that's been the case, that you really haven't had to do it. So my observation is this: I think it's a really good use of resources for the office and to justify staff by monitoring these public meetings, almost like mini audits, to make sure that they're doing it. And when they're not doing it, to remind them to do it. And then, and if they ignore you, of course, there are other alternatives after that. But I do really think that this is consistent with the way the office, the agency, was originally set up to be a preventative rather than a gotcha sort of organization to collaborate and to help these folks open their meetings and comply with the Open Meetings Act, rather than to punish them after the fact for not doing so. So I guess I'm just saying I'm really glad to see this, that this is a practice that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Allen? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Director Allen, and also the board congratulates Nick on his performance award. So with that, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. Also via WebEx, we'll hear from Director Ashley Cooks from the Office of Government Ethics. Director Cooks, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I'm Ashley Cooks, the Director of Government Ethics. I'm pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Government Ethics, OGE. First, an update on the status of OGE operations. The information reported today regarding OGE's cases will not reflect any status changes that may occur as a result of actions taken by the board during today's meeting. We have 56 open investigations, one investigation that is pending negotiations, for a grand total of 57 open investigations by status. We have 2 matters that are open undocketed. Next are pending state investigations by status. We have 27 matters that are closed pending collection. 4 matters stayed pending DC Superior Court case. 6 matters stayed for OAG False Claims Act case. 5 matters that are stayed for an OIG investigation. And 1 matter stayed for a U.S. District Court case for a grand total of 43 matters. Next are regulatory matters by status. We have 30 matters closed pending collection, 3 matters that are open for a grand total of 33 regulatory matters. Currently, we have 57 open investigations and 16 matters that are stayed. The number of open preliminary and formal investigations includes 15 new matters. The investigative team resolved 2 investigations since the board last met. This total does not reflect the number of complaints that were dismissed for a lack of jurisdiction. The quarterly complaint report for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2022 has been posted online, and a copy was placed in the Dropbox for your review. Next is training and outreach. First, professional development trainings attended by staff. During the month of October, OGE's legal staff, Investigator Cook and I, attended the 2022 Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics, SCCE, 21st Annual Compliance and Ethics Institute. Some attended in person in Arizona and others virtually from here. The Institute ran from Sunday through Wednesday, October 16th through the 19th. Some of the most relevant and interesting sessions were a risk-based approach to compliance hotline cases, implementing ethical and effective culture change, case studies on sustainable culture change, government expectations of investigations, a comparative analysis of internal investigations and ethics consultations, conducting joint investigations with external partners, managing the ethics and compliance function in a hybrid environment, conducting ethical compliance investigations, and designing compliance programs which are based on outcomes rather than process. BEGA employees who will travel to attend trainings and conferences will complete the travel approval reimbursement training through the district's integrated financial system, DIFS. This is the district's integrated financial system that I reported on last month. OGE attorneys and investigators are taking this training in anticipation of the 44th Annual Conference of the Council on Government Ethics Laws, COGL, in Montreal, Canada next month, December 4th through the 7th. OGE employees, Program Specialist COSIC and Auditor Chajuba completed the mandatory DC government cybersecurity training course. All employees must complete this course by the end of the calendar year. Program Specialist COSIC is also working on completing project management and data analytics courses. Auditor Chajuba took the following courses: leading in a hybrid workplace, planning an effective performance appraisal, developing a successful team, and being a fair and caring manager. Investigator Ileana Corrales attended a 2-day course entitled Management and Leadership Skills for First-Time Supervisors and Managers. In addition to the SCCE conference, Senior Attorney Advisor Lynn Tran attended Advanced Compliance and Ethics Workshop 2022. Next are trainings conducted by staff. Since the October board meeting, OGE conducted 6 trainings, which includes the October Board and Commissions training, November HATCHAC training, which is our final HATCHAC training for the 2022 election season, 2 ethics trainings for the DC Fire and Emergency Medical Services Agency, a training on seeking or negotiating for employment for the Executive Office of the Mayor, which had 306 attendees, and the October Brown Bag session. Earlier this week, General Counsel Rashi Raj led our monthly Ethics Counselor Brown Bag session entitled Ethics Scary Stories, True Tales That Make Ethics Counselors' Blood Run Cold. Using the Halloween theme, GC Raj and OGE attorneys told scary ethics stories paraphrased from some of the recent negotiated dispositions. 33 ethics counselors attended and enjoyed hearing the updates. Our next Brown Bag session will take place on Monday, November 28th, on our favorite annual holiday topic, gifts. During October, 37 employees completed online ethics training via PeopleSoft. Since the launch of the Learning Management System, 350 employees have completed learning modules, which is a 7% increase from previous reporting. Supervisory Attorney Advisor Stuart Mitchell, Program Specialist Kosick, and I met with our LRN Program Manager to discuss ways to increase employee registration. Next is outreach. OGE issued its November 2022 newsletter, Ethically Speaking, on November 1st. This issue features a reminder about the local HATCHAC restrictions, most recent negotiated dispositions, upcoming events, U.S. OGE's 2021 Conflict of Interest Prosecution Survey, ethics prosecutions in other jurisdictions, and advice on dealing with stress. The newsletter is posted on our website, and a copy was placed in the Dropbox for your review.
I read it, Director Cooks. I really enjoyed it. Nice work on that.
Thank you. OGE and OOG continue to meet with the Office of the Chief Technology Officer's website development staff to coordinate the BEGA website refresh. We are currently working on changes to the website's design so that information is readily available with minimal search efforts. We submitted an updated sitemap of the website in early October and approved a mock-up for the website design. Octo has imaged our current website, and we're working on language and images for the new web pages. Next is Ethics Week 2022. During the week of Tuesday, October 11 through Friday, October 14, 2022, OGE hosted BEGA's annual Ethics Week. This year's theme was Ethics in Practice, demonstrating how ethics weaves its way through all our areas of work. As Director Allen mentioned, Thursday, October 13th was dedicated solely to OOG training. All of the event sessions were well attended, and we've received positive feedback. Some of the sessions with highest attendance were Unlocking Positive Values of Ethics, which had 198 attendees. Being Ethical is Harder Than You Think, 120 attendees. BEGA Investigations, 112 attendees. Financial Disclosure, 102 attendees. Ask BEGA, 97 attendees. Legal Ethics for Government Attorneys, 94 attendees. Open Meetings Act, 91 attendees. Introduction from OOG Director and FOIA course, 89 attendees. And Board Member Darrin Sobin joined us for a panel discussion on the future of government ethics, which had 67 attendees.
And I will say, Director, I think that it was brilliant because these numbers are off the charts. I've never seen numbers like this before. So I think it's brilliant that you guys targeted CFDS filers and the public filers in addition to the ethics counselors, because it used to be we would just get like AG folks in there. But this is the group that we want to hit. So nice job. And thank you for inviting me. I was honored to be there.
Thank you. I will say that I agree that this was our best year. These are record numbers for us. So I'd like to thank Attorney Advisor Stuart Mitchell for coordinating the event, as well as all the staff that participated and attended. The Ethics Week presentations are available on our BEGA YouTube page, which is linked to our website.
Great. And I'll also,
I do notice that my panel got the fewest number. So whatever that means.
oh, that was for the lawyers, right? Yeah,
That's
I'd also like to compliment you on that. I was able to attend some of the sessions and they were great, very, very thorough. And want to compliment the staff on everything.
Thank you. Next are advisory opinions and advice. First, informal advice. OGE's legal staff provided advice for approximately 35 ethics inquiries, which is 2 less than the 37 reported at the last board meeting. This number does not include responses we have provided to questions regarding the lobbyists and FDS e-filing systems. For formal advice, OGE's sua sponte advisory opinion entitled Guidance on the Local Hatch Act and Fundraising Activities is in its 30-day public comment period. This opinion provides guidance on maintaining ethical standards while engaging in political activities and clarifies prohibited and permissible fundraising activities. It covers permissible fundraising activities such as fundraising for one's own campaign, fundraising for a partisan non-district regulated campaign, and the designation rule. Pursuant to DC Official Code Section 1-1162.192, the opinion was sent to the DC Register for a 30-day notice of publication. Next are legislation updates, and I just have one on Bill 24-0706, Board of Ethics and Government Accountability Delinquent Debt Recovery Amendment Act of 2022. This bill will allow BEGA to discretionarily transfer delinquent debts associated with settlements and judgments for Ethics and OMA Meeting Act violations to the District Central Collection Unit for collection, and for the funds collected on BEGA's behalf to be deposited into the Ethics Fund or OMA Fund instead of the General Fund. The additional funding will allow BEGA to supplement its operating budget. I am pleased to announce that on Tuesday, October 4th, the bill was passed by the Council. On November 1st, it was approved by the Mayor. The next step is to submit the bill to Congress. A copy of the committee report was placed in the Dropbox for your review. Next are OGE administrative matters. First, OGE staffing. The attorney advisor and program support assistant vacancy announcements both closed since the last board meeting in October. Both sets of applications are under review. As an approved fiscal year 2022 budget enhancement request, OGE received funding to hire a supervisory investigator. That position will be posted in the next few weeks. The closing out of fiscal year 2022 performance evaluations and formulation of the fiscal year 2023 performance plans is underway. The process for both will be completed by November 18th, 2022. Next is an update on the budget. The agency is in the process of finalizing its fiscal year 2024 budget packet. We will submit the budget formulation packet on, it was actually submitted today by our OCPO people. And our budget enhancement request and budget presentation will be submitted to the Office of the Budget and Performance Management on next week. And our presentation before that office is scheduled for November 17th. Next is office relocation. Our office relocation is underway. We have begun weekly meetings with the Department of General Services construction team and the architect to discuss the build out of the space. Again, that address for the new office space is 1050 15th Street Northwest. Next is financial disclosure statement, FDS. On October 14th, the FDS team sent notices to all DC council members informing them that their biannual financial disclosure report is due on November 15th. A reminder was sent to council members and their chiefs of staff on October 26th. Our latest e-filing system upgrade would provide clarity for council members when filing their biannual financial disclosure statements was deployed on October 25th. And last is a report on the lobbying registration and reporting, LRR. Third quarter 2022 activity reports were due on Monday, October 17th, 2022. On September 30th, the LRR team sent a reminder notice to 450 lobbyists. The notice advised the recipients of the deadline. In response, reporting entities filed 462 activity reports, 11 new registrations, and 11 terminations. Additionally, reporting entities filed 13 support tickets. Attorney advisor Echoes and program specialist Kosick provided me with a proposed lobbyist site map for the future BEGA website, the BEGA website enhancements. The goal is to make the website more accessible and responsive to lobbyists with a more one-stop shop approach. In anticipation of making repairs and upgrades to the e-filing system, the LRR team met with Abstract Evolution to discuss potential fixes and prepare a cost estimate. The cost estimate will be included in our budget enhancement request package. Finally, Auditor Chajuba completed the third quarter calendar year 2022 lobbyist activity report audit. His findings were communicated with the lobbyist team. Thank you. This concludes the Office of Government Ethics November 3rd, 2022 report.
Thank you, Director Cooks. Are there any questions for Director Cooks?
No questions, but again, an observation and just to report out, this has really become ethics season, I guess, fall, because in addition to what you guys put on and what you guys attended, that other ethics program, and Kogel coming up in December, I also had the privilege last week of presenting at a panel at New York Law School for the Anti-Corruption Academy, which is put on by the National Association of Attorneys General Training and Research Institute. And it was a week-long program, again, you know, with all the various, well, it's a little different than what we do at BEGA. This is all about how AGs around the country, who are actually the audience for the Academy, can better utilize tools to fight corruption. Most of it is criminal, but we were featured because of the chapter that we have in the anti-corruption manual about civil alternatives. And boy, did it gain a lot of interest up there, because a lot of times, you know, so many of these matters that, you know, they only have the opportunity to bring it as a criminal matter. And if they don't bring it as a criminal matter, it doesn't get handled at all. Or it may be handled as a personnel matter, which is exactly the reason why we were created in the first place years ago, because of this big gap in the middle between criminal misconduct and non-criminal misconduct. So I guess that's just a long way to say that, you know, the BEGA flag was carried to New York Law School, and it was very well received. And it wasn't me, it was just the fact of all the good things that this agency is doing. In fact, the professor who was the moderator of the panel that I served on was a former member of the New York Conflicts of Interest Board. And some of you may know that was the model we used to create BEGA in the first place. And he was very interested in where we were, what we were doing, you know, how things have gone in the last 10 years since we were created. And I was happy to report that, you know, that all the things that we imagined this agency could do, we are doing even better than some imagined. So kudos to all of you. Our reputation is growing.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions, comments before we move to the next item? Okay. The next item on the agenda are public comments, and the public was invited to submit comments in writing by 11 a.m. today, and we did not receive any comments. Executive closed session. Okay, the next agenda item is a closed session to discuss ongoing confidential investigations pursuant to DC Official Code Section 2-575B14, to consult with an attorney to obtain legal advice and to preserve the attorney-client privilege between an attorney and a public body pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 252-575B4A, to discuss personnel matters including the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, performance evaluation, compensation, discipline, demotion, removal, or resignation of government appointees, employees, or officials pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-575B10, to deliberate on a decision in which the Ethics Board will exercise quasi-judicial functions pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-575B13, and to discuss contract negotiation strategies pursuant to DC Official Code, Section 2-575B2. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
I'll offer the motion that we enter into executive session.
I'll second the motion.
Great. It's been moved and seconded that the board enter into executive session. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the board members are asked to log out of this session and log into WebEx for the executive session. Once the session is over, we will return to this WebEx to report out any matters decided, finish any other business, and to adjourn the meeting. So let's go into executive session. Thank you.
I think we have 2 board members in the
I'm here. Can you
attending.
hear me? This is Chip.
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. I'm just.
I think it's Darrin and Felice are stuck in the
In the public, not as presenters. So, Yvonne, can you address that, or anyone who has access to the account?
Yeah, I saw a message flash up from Darrin saying he's trying to rejoin. He was asking if someone would let him in.
So Lynn, are you a co-host? I'm not.
I am not a co-host, so I messaged Kayvon to let Darrin and Felice in.
Back,
There he is.
back from the ether.
Do we have our fearless chair?
Okay. I think I was hitting on an old link or something. I'm not sure what happened. But anyhow, the time is now 1:05 p.m. and we are back on the record. There are no matters to report out. So this concludes the meeting of the DC Board of Ethics and Government Accountability for November. Our next meeting will be on December 1st at 12 noon. Please have a happy Veterans Day. It's coming up on the 11th, and a happy and safe Thanksgiving. And I want to remind all the board members that we do have cyber training that we need to take by no later than December 30th. Okay, and with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.